Hello, my name is Kai, and I am a bit of a rambler. I like to travel, tell stories, and learn, not necessarily in that order. One of the most common responses I get after someone learns I'm a long-term traveler is, I wish I could do that. And my immediate answer is, you can. Because I'm sure there are reasons that some people cannot travel, but I've talked with hundreds of people about this and pointed out exactly how they could travel full-time, and after we discuss their concerns, and they find out that they can travel if they want to, they come to the conclusion, well, I don't want to, which is fine. Some people don't want to travel. But if you don't, then you don't. But can you? Yes. Can they? Yes, in every case where somebody has asked me. That person has been able to travel, usually at a level of comfort and security higher than what they are experiencing in their home country. Am I too old? No. My friend group in Cambodia was mostly 70 and 80-year-old full-time travelers who got together every day and told their stories about the first concerts they ever saw. What do I do about my house? You can sell it or keep it, give it to a management company. What do I do about a job? If you have anything that pays you over $500 a month, you're good. If you don't and you're a native English speaker, you can teach English. There are programming jobs. There are so many jobs available abroad and digitally. Does blank country have blank? Yep. Yeah, they do. And importantly, if they don't have enough of whatever you're looking for, you can go to one of the other 200 countries at the drop of a hat. Most of the questions I get are questions I've gotten before hundreds of times, so I'd like to address a few of those concerns in a little more detail. Many of these concerns are valid, and once you are traveling, you have the answers instantly. But if you haven't traveled before, then of course you're going to have the same questions that everybody else who hasn't traveled before has. While I am going through each of these common concerns, I do want to restate right at the top and ask you to bear in mind. The short answer to all of these concerns is that yes, you can travel. Yes, you can travel, even taking into consideration ... Let's start with healthcare. Medication and healthcare concerns come up a lot, and they should be the least of your worries. There are tons of extremely affordable insurance plans, like less than a couple hundred a year. Healthcare systems and infrastructure abroad overall are usually much easier to access and more affordable, with identical quality in care. So if you have chronic pain, you can get an equivalent medication for far less without insurance wherever you're going. That's the same with any medication I've ever heard of: hormone supplements, chemotherapy, antivirals, antiparasites, anything you use. And I know tons of people who have been taking medication, then once they began traveling, went to a hospital, got the equivalent medication or the same medication, and continued that regimen. And it's always a matter of going to the doctor, which you can get an appointment the same day without insurance in most countries. It's only the US with such a crazy bureaucratic medical infrastructure. And then you'll get a prescription for the illness you have, and they will give you it. And a lot of more common medications that may not be available in the States, you can get over the counter in other countries. A lot of other countries seem much more dedicated to providing care for the patient, which is not exactly the mode of health provision in the United States. So if you're looking for healthcare or dental or vision, it's going to be a lot faster and a lot cheaper than what you're used to if you're from the States, while enjoying the same quality. My glasses are from Cambodia. They were $30. They've lasted 10 years now. They're amazing. They're literally the best glasses I've ever got. Shout out to that French optometrist who decided to set up shop in Cambodia. I've got like 3 root canals done in Thailand because I didn't know about electronic toothbrushes before I was 25, and apparently I'm bad at brushing my teeth. Luckily, I was in Thailand, where they can take all the measurements, do all the surgical procedures of a root canal, fabricate the crown in the lab. Done. They're all great. Gold crowns, less than half the price of the States without insurance, and it's literally the best dental clinic in the country. I don't have any chronic illnesses, but I know guys who had surgeries, knee surgeries and hip surgeries, and they had to get medication, and they walked in and walked out the same day with the medication they needed. In fact, in Morocco, Vicodin is over the counter there. Found that out from the dentist. So medical access is freely available in most countries and instant. Same goes for medication. If a primary concern is that a medical condition is going to prohibit you from traveling, it very likely is not. And it is as easy as looking up the hospitals that treat your condition, because there are those hospitals almost wherever you go, and just discovering the fee schedule. You can find out how much it is before you go, and what the reputation of the hospital is. Some of them, like Thai hospitals, just have reviews like anything else, and you can hear from the patients themselves. Let's talk about solo traveling. A lot of women I know ask if it's safe for a female solo traveler, and since I am a guy, I don't want to say, it's fine, which is definitely what I would tend to say to anybody who asked me from my personal experience. But the female solo travelers I know have all told me that they have had good solo travels by themselves. Now, I wouldn't walk down a dark alley when I saw two guys like smoking, or a huddle of hooligans or whatever. And neither do female solo travelers. Male or female solo travelers use common sense. Male or female travelers shouldn't put themselves in any dangerous situation they can reasonably avoid. But the female solo travelers who have told me about their travels all have said that they feel safe on all of their travels, and they use common sense to stay out of dangerous situations, like any solo traveler should do. Always be aware of your surroundings, the same way you should always be aware of your surroundings wherever you are. You don't have to backpack, your first journey out. You can just hang out in your hostel, talk to people, or don't talk to people. You can lounge by the pool for a month and just chill out. You don't have to go on these crazy adventures that I might talk about on here or other people tell you about. That's not what traveling is, for me anyway. I see traveling as a mode of living your life the way you want to. One time in Laos, I got tired and I just spent 2 weeks straight playing video games, going out and eating, going back to my nice little apartment and playing more video games, because I was just feeling kind of burnt out, like I was working too much on my own stuff, and I feel like I was putting too much pressure on myself. So I've loaded up, Horizon, one of the Horizon games that I had never played, and just was like, okay, I'm just going to do this until I finish it. And I fought robot dinosaurs, and it was a good time. And I felt recharged at the end of it. I felt like I wanted to get out of the house at the end of it. Start working on my own stuff again and start exploring again, which are things I like to do. So, can you travel? Yes, and you can travel the way you want to. Can I travel seems to carry this weight of expectation. When people ask me, can I travel? They're like, do you think I can backpack 1,000 miles, or can I climb volcanoes and that kind of thing? And you don't have to worry about that. Yes, you can travel, and you can travel exactly how you want to. If you want to long distance backpack, totally can. If you want to visit hot springs every week, great. If you want to lie under the comforter for 2 weeks straight and just sleep 20 hours a day, do that. Those are all great traveling lifestyles that I have personally enjoyed. You're not obligated to do anything once you start traveling. There's no travel boss, just you. You're the travel boss. The travel boss was inside you all along. How about safety? This is subjective. I feel way safer in most other countries than I do in the States, because most citizens from other countries aren't afraid of the people around them like a lot of Americans are. And to be clear, it is usually the bigot who is afraid of the people around them, not the target of the prejudice. I was sitting in a bar, and then someone shot someone else in the head in the parking lot in Denver because he was in his parking spot, and then they argued. So the guy who was in the parking spot drove away and flipped him off. So that guy, rather than taking the parking spot, drove after him and then at a red light ran up and shot him in the head with a pistol. I have random people walking up to me talking about how we need to get rid of immigrants or whatever undesirable that bigot doesn't like, and they feel dangerous when they tell me these things. The bigot accosting me always feels more dangerous and uncomfortable than the person they're afraid of and are attempting to alienate. I stopped in Philadelphia for a week, and the first day I landed back, I was stopped by a guy outside some convenience store, I can't remember. He saw my backpack, he was in the military, and then he really wanted to talk to me, and then he started talking about how Jews have religion in their blood, and that's why we should be wary of them. Instantly. And then when he found out I came from India, he started telling me about how he really hated Indians. And just for edification, this was not an old, white, easy-to-spot MAGA guy. This was a 20-something, younger than me for sure, black dude who felt like he needed to stop a guy to tell him about his prejudices. Those conversations are flying around in public in the US, feel dangerous and gross. They're chiseling away at your humanity. I saw another guy that same day, a little earlier, screaming sexual, not obscenities, but rude sexual assault slurs at a woman walking down the opposite side of the street. And then that guy who I was man, maybe he's strung out or he seems really undone in some way. Something's wrong with him. Answered his phone and started filling an order for some construction work he was doing for someone else, talking like a totally normal person. And 5 seconds before, he had been sexually assaulting this woman who was in vague physical proximity. Shocking. And it doesn't feel safe there. I've been to a lot of countries, and Fez in Morocco is the only place that has felt as dangerous as pretty much any place in the USA. I've lived in a lot of neighborhoods that locals say are the dangerous part, but a lot of those countries don't even allow most citizens to have guns without very strict regulation licenses. So I think when you're walking around in other countries, once you realize that there aren't weapons everywhere and there isn't this ideological war, especially now going on in 2025, people in the US are afraid and angry at their citizens, their fellow citizens of the same country. You don't really have that thing in other countries. Other country citizens are not afraid of their neighbor citizens because they hold different views. Every community you're going to be a part of or live in for a while abroad is just much more comfortable because you don't have that tension of, oh, that guy disagrees with my opinions so strongly, he might shoot me. That's not an issue in most countries. And you can feel it in the interactions between citizens. They aren't afraid of each other like Americans are. So it's a much more relaxing culture in pretty much every other culture outside of the US. It's just a lot more calming. Those nuts in your shoulders relax. At least they do in mine. So I just want to assure you that if you're worried about how safe it is outside of the US, it's more safe outside of the US from my direct experience. And while that is anecdotal evidence, you can talk to any traveler who's been out there for a while and ask them that question, oh, is it safe out there? They will tell you yes. Yeah, it's a world. Yeah, there's people. Yeah, they're safe. They're as safe as where you are. It's very common to have a roundtable discussion of expats talking about how safe they feel outside of the US. So if you just have those concerns taken care of, okay, it's safe enough. I can get medical care. I can still access my bank account. So what do I need to do to get out there? Because you're out there, how did you do it? What you need is a passport and then an airplane ticket. That's it. For 180 countries, that's all you need. Americans enjoy visa-free travel and visa on arrival travel in most countries in the world. So all you need is your passport, and then you need to get an airline ticket. There are a few countries you have to apply for the passport first, but it's an online form. You fill it out. It maybe takes 10 minutes, and then they email you your visa a couple days later. That is the visa process for most countries that do require a visa in the world. It is that simple. And then, like I said, a bunch of those, you don't even need the visa or their visas on arrival. Most of them, you don't need a visa or you can get visa on arrival. So you just need a passport and a ticket, and then you can go. Now, the next question, of course, is, well, what about my income? Now, this varies on whatever, but let's just say, as a standard, you want your own private place with your own private bathroom in a safe neighborhood. How much do you need for that? You need about 500 USD per month for that. The room is going to be about 300 and then 200 for food and getting around. Now, if you have more than 500 USD, you're set. If you have a remote job that gets you more than that, you're set. How can you get income? Again, if you have a remote job, you're good. The easiest thing outside of that is to teach English, because you can teach English in most countries, and you're going to get paid much more than the cost of living in that country. The lowest any English teacher I've ever heard of making is $1,000 per month, and that's in Cambodia, where the cost of living is $300 a month, buying food from restaurants every day. So it would be very easy to save money, even if you were only making the absolute minimum. And it's a lot more normal to make $2,000 plus teaching English. But in China, the cost of living is also way under $500. So you're saving $1,500 a month easy. That's teaching about 25 hours a week. Just basic, not even conversational. Half the time it's just primary colors and stuff because it's really young kids, but up to conversational English. You repeat it for 45 minutes. They answer you. You get paid $2,500 at the end of the month for 20-hour weeks. If you join a school that's like more set up, then they might even give you free housing. And it's very common to get signing bonuses if you stay on for an extra 6 months or an extra year. And that really is just free money to continue teaching at their school. Do you need the job before you go, before you start traveling? You do not. If you have one, that's great. Like I said, if you have a remote job already, you're all set. But if you don't have a job and you just move to a country that is looking for English teachers, you'll get that job. And that is most countries. If you're in Central or South America, any of those countries, you can find an English teaching job. If you are anywhere in Asia, you can find an English teaching job. If you're anywhere in like the Middle East or Africa, you can teach English. So this is a worldwide job opportunity that you don't even have to look into before you go. You certainly can. You can agree to get a job at a school before you go there, just so you feel good about it. But the jobs are everywhere out there. If you're a native speaker, you've got the job in whatever country you're traveling to. Outside of like England and Ireland, outside of majority English-speaking countries, obviously. So you don't need a job before you go. ESL, English as a second language. Yeah, go teach it. There's a billion ESL jobs. It's crazy. So I was giving the median job income levels, but if you teach in Saudi Arabia, you can get 6,000 USD a month in some of the listings I saw anyway. I believe the listing I saw for 6,000 in Saudi Arabia was for 40 hours a week instead of 20. But is your job 40 hours a week now? Are you making 6,000 a month? You could, speaking basic English to school children. I actually had a friend from China who gave me a list of like provincial schools where he wanted English teachers, and since they're remote, the salaries were higher than what you would get in the city, and they were like 4,000 to 6,000 a month, and I almost went back to China and started teaching again when I saw that. But I dig traveling, so I didn't. But if you want those jobs, they are there in China. I don't have that specific guy's information anymore, but if you ask around while you're looking for a job in or out of the country, you are going to get so much more information than you could ever use on which jobs are available where and how much you get paid and the benefits. Because, again, native English speakers are in such high demand. As far as countries go, China is probably the easiest. Japan is probably the most difficult. But even in Japan, it's not very difficult to get an English teaching job, especially if you get your TEFL certificate. So if you're worried about getting a job, you don't need the TEFL certificate, but if you have one, you'll definitely get the job at a higher pay immediately. And that is a $40 investment Groupon that will last the rest of your lifetime and guarantee you a job as long as people speak English. You can also get a work visa. If you talk to a school before you go and they agree to sponsor your work visa, you'll probably go over on a tourist visa, and once you actually show up, the school will go through the trouble of getting you the work visa. If you're working for a university, then they'll get you the work visa beforehand. But yeah, you can get a work visa. But if you just go over there or to any country on a tourist visa and then join a school, they can get you a work visa once you start working, or you can roll the dice and just work on a tourist visa. But that is illegal in some countries. It's not illegal in some countries. I don't recommend it. I did do it. If you need money, go teach English and you'll have all the money you need or want. It's more money for half the hours, and it's your native language. But if you already make more than $500 on a remote job, yeah, go. You're good. If that's your only concern, if you're making more than $500 USD a month and you have a remote job, you're fine. You can go travel. If you want to check out some of these English teaching jobs I'm talking about, you can go to eslcafe.com, look for the classifieds. There's a whole bunch. There are teacher jobs listed in every country. You can just email them and they'll email you back and you'll get a job. And I mentioned Dave's ESL Cafe because it's one of the oldest job listing sites there are, but there are hundreds of those sites with thousands of listings, and most of them are just platforms that connect you, the prospective English teacher, to the school directly. So you can very quickly see if it's a real job posting, which for ESL, it is a real job posting, and determine for yourself whether or not that school is a good fit for you. Again, you don't have to get the job before you go to the country you want to teach English in, but you can apply to any of these jobs and talk directly to school members, recruiting officers, sometimes the owners of the schools themselves, and see if that's what you want to do, if that's where you want to teach. Another phrase I hear a lot, exclusively from people who haven't traveled, is culture shock, which is, I'm still not sure what exactly that's supposed to mean, other than I'm in a place where I can't speak the language and things are different. But you're not actually going to go into shock like if someone cut your arm off. The craziest example I've seen in real life of culture shock is something like, they call noodles mian? How do you remember that? And you're like, well, that's just the word here, mian. They're like, oh, okay. Culture shock over. Another common example of culture shock is, chopsticks are hard. It doesn't usually get much more severe than that. And if you don't like the country, you can just go to another country. 180 other countries are waiting for you. But countries you haven't been to are very similar to the country you have been to, the country you're from, regardless of where you're from. The more you think your country is unique from other countries and your people are unique from other people is probably an indicator of how little you understand your and other countries. Which, of course, is going to be the case if you've only ever lived in one country. Trying to understand the world if you've never lived in it is like writing a senior thesis about the ocean, but you've only ever been to a swimming pool. And if you ever feel like you need any sort of assistance, ask around. People will try to help you. And organizations are available. There are embassies that you can call up for help. You can just call up the US Embassy for help if you're in another country, just for regular help if you need it. But English is the second language in pretty much every country on the planet. So if you're an English speaker, you will be able to find help somewhere. There are pharmacies everywhere. There are supermarkets everywhere. There are concerts everywhere. It's not a radically different world. It is a world where the letters look different and people use a different word for cow. But the world itself is still the world. So culture shock should not be a huge worry for you. As soon as you learn where the local supermarket is, which looks like a supermarket in every country I've ever been to, or convenience store, and the local guy selling food outside on the street, and you have your apartment, the culture shock part of it is over. You know where there's food, you know where you can go to the bathroom, take a shower, you have a roof over your head. Just start learning the language. And culture shock, like I said, nobody who ever has traveled really uses that term very often because you get used to a place very quickly, no matter how different it seems to be when you land. You can deal with this. People are adaptable. You are adaptable. When you get there, you'll adapt. Most of these changes or differences are completely superficial anyway. And the quicker you learn the language, the more comfortable everything will be more quickly. And you do not have to be fluent. Just learn a bit. People will like you more. You'll feel more comfortable where you are. And you're going to make English-speaking friends wherever you are anyway. So, yeah, don't worry about culture shock. If you are feeling isolated, there are couch surfing groups in every single country. You guys can meet up. It's expats and locals, and you can make friends very easily. You can join one of the friend apps, like Tinder for dating, but just for friends, and you can just start hanging out with people. It's very easy to connect, especially when you're traveling. You're going to find that you make way more friends traveling than you ever did at home. That's a common refrain from travelers in general. Especially if you're a solo traveler, people will just start talking to you. It's easier to strike up conversations and make connections with people while traveling because everyone is kind of looking and exploring, and they're all just more open-minded and open-hearted abroad than someone, tucked in a neighborhood for 20 years. Also, so many of those expats are not going to have the stress that you see in the States because it's not grinding their soul through financial ruin every single day. You need so little money to live well in most of these countries that there's just not that overwhelming depression that seems to swim through the atmosphere in the United States, slowing everyone down and making them bitter. The cost of living is so much more affordable while traveling in most of the world's countries. Your passport, it costs $165 right now, I think. You can spend $300 to go to any country in the world, and less than $100 to go to half of the countries after you have your passport, and for a couple $100, you can cut your cost of living by 80% immediately. So if you want to go 2 steps, get your passport, get a ticket, let's start with the first step. How do you get your passport? You can get it online now, but you still have to go in person to the US Post Office anyway. I would just recommend going to the post office nearest you that offers that service. You go in there, you fill out a form, they take your picture, you pay the fee, and 2 weeks later or 1 week later, you get the passport in the mail. That's it. It's a very straightforward process. And yeah, it costs $160, but again, your cost of living is going to be 80% cheaper immediately once you use it. And the passport lasts for 10 years, so you're spending $16 a year to reduce your cost of living by 80% or more. It's a pretty good deal for $160 to not pay $1,600 in rent every month. Then the next and final step is to get a ticket to somewhere that sounds interesting to you, for whatever reason. Okay, ticket to the rest of the world. Cheap. Tickets around the world are much cheaper than people tell you they are, and that everywhere tells you they are. Just look every day for like 3 days, and you're going to see these prices wildly fluctuate. Use an incognito tab so that you can see the real prices. If you use an incognito tab on one site, and on another device you type in Japan flights and then look for Japan flights, it's gonna be $30, $50 more expensive because they know you're looking for a flight, which means you're intent on buying a ticket, which means they can charge you a little bit more and you'll get it. So I always use incognito tabs. I always check for a few days in a row. But even if you pay the most versus the least, the cheapest flight to Japan from LA or Seattle or whatever, Texas, is about $250. And the most expensive is generally $450. So if $200 isn't a big deal to you, bearing in mind how much money you're going to be saving because of the cost of living abroad, then it's fine. you don't have to worry about ticket prices that much. And if you just do the minimum of research, or you even just set price alerts, you really will get the better deal if you plan ahead. Or for me, I buy all my tickets about 1 to 2 weeks out before I leave. And the price is negligible. It's maybe $10 more or $10 less. It doesn't seem to make much of a difference if I plan 3 months ahead or 2 weeks ahead. I bought my most recent ticket 3 days out, and I buy a lot of tickets like that. I bought same-day tickets before. It's still basically the same price. I got a same-day ticket to Laos that was cheaper than the ticket I was originally going to buy. So once you have your ticket to the rest of the world, your little cool blue book passport adventure journal, you can renew it whenever you want to. You can add pages to it if you go to too many countries and you have too many stamps. It's just a very simple, straightforward, inexpensive process compared to how much you're paying now for U.S. utilities and rent and insurance and all that stuff. So if your concern is, but isn't traveling expensive, more expensive than I'm spending now? No, not in any way. It's so much cheaper. Okay, so if you're nervous about how difficult it will be to travel for the first time, I recommend Thailand. There's a reason why so many people go there. Everyone is super cool. They're so friendly, and the economy and businesses and people are very used to tourists. There's people who speak English there, and there's a ton of other travelers too from other countries. So there are people all around you can talk like, am I traveling right? Just to make sure that first time. And they'll assure you that yes, you are traveling perfectly correctly. And it's inexpensive. It's a very easy climate to live in. Everything is there in Thailand. They have access to tech because they're in Asia. You can get anything you need. The food is great. Everybody's casual. The whole culture is kind of casual. Everyone's very accepting. So if I have to recommend a first country to go to, it's probably Thailand if you're really worried about if you're going to like where you are, because it's pretty difficult to go to Thailand and not like it unless you hate hot weather, and then, go to Japan or some other northern latitude country. But Thailand's probably the easiest place to start. Very inexpensive, very nice people, great food, good place overall. You should go to China, and you should probably go to India because there are 2 billion people in each of those countries. So if you want to find out what the majority of the world is doing, go visit those 2 countries. Oh, talking about safety real quick again. Tourists are especially protected because tourism is a huge industry in any country, including the United States. So most countries, and Thailand is another great example of this, protect their tourists very well, because they don't want any negative publicity to get out and make it look like their country is not safe. So that's another reason why, as a tourist, you should feel safer than you do in your own country. There's actually an index of countries from most to least safe, and Laos and Guatemala are in the bottom 50 of those out of 200 countries, but I've been to both of those and they're fine. And there are 150 countries above those that are green, that are perfectly safe to go to. There are lots of safe destinations, comfortable destinations that will welcome you with open arms, with a vastly lower cost of living that you can enjoy. And that's solo travelers, that's male travelers, female travelers, special needs travelers, families, people with special considerations, chronic illnesses. Whatever it is, I've met those people and they are traveling. They're happy to see Chefchaouen in Morocco. This cool little city where everything's blue. Everything's painted blue. Or they're happy to go to Essaouira and check out all the cool surfers and nice beaches. There's travelers of all kinds everywhere, and you can be one too. If that interests you and you are wondering, can I travel? I'm here making this podcast to tell you, yeah, you can. If you have any questions or concerns, please write to me at bitofarambler@gmail.com. I will get back to you. And if anything I mentioned you want to go into more detail on, look at the episode list and try to find the TEFL one, Teaching English as a Foreign Language. There's a medical tourism episode. Yeah, just dive into whatever you're curious about. Those episodes will go into what I've talked about in more detail. Good talking to you, and I will see you on the next one. Oh, I guess let's close this out with a few ticket prices. So Mexico, $22. Canada, $22. Puerto Rico's $40. Honduras, $40. Guatemala, $59. Ooh, Jamaica's $81. Let's move on. Let's go to Australia, $145. These are all tickets from the States. The Netherlands is $156. France is $156. So, yeah, you can get to, wow, Ireland's $170. Go to Ireland, it's great. What else do we have? Let's go see what Asia looks like. Ooh, Japan, $261. Egypt, $289. Not Asia, I know. Korea, $333. Oh, that's cool. Okay. South Korea is $333. That's a good number. Go to Korea. Thailand, $338. Also a good number. Wherever you want to go, you can go, and it's going to be great. Have a great trip.